Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead, I think, and get started. We might have some people still trickling in, but we're at 10:03, so they are officially late, and we'll get rolling, and they'll catch up once they arrive. Thanks for coming to our presentation on understanding funding opportunities and maximizing your partnership with DCRT. We are going to have several of our different departments come in and out throughout the presentation and go over their different departments. I'm just going to kick us off with an overview. No. Okay, so I'm Jennifer Berthelot. I'm Director of Communications for the Louisiana Office of Tourism, just so that you have who I am. So the Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism is run by the Lieutenant Governor, Billy Nungesser. So he is over the purview of all of the departments that you're going to hear from today, unlike several other departments throughout the state that report directly to the governor. And they operate those offices entirely separately. So just for like a basis of where we're kind of starting from. And now I'm going to run through all of the different departments within DCRT. There are quite a few. I'm going to start with Volunteer Louisiana. They run all of our national service and volunteerism. They oversee our AmeriCorps state service, our Volunteer of the Year. They answer any kind of community involvement when we have a hurricane or a disaster that requires volunteers to step in and assist in different communities. They champion those efforts. We recently brought in Keep Louisiana Beautiful. Lieutenant Governor Nungesser pointed out very reasonably that when you invite people to come over to your house, you normally like to make sure that it's clean when they arrive. And it makes a lot of sense for Keep Louisiana Beautiful to live within the DCRT structure because of that. And they're working to stop littering in Louisiana and have beautification programs to clean up existing litter. The State Library of Louisiana is also part of DCRT. It includes obviously the main library downtown, and it supports local parish libraries across the state. And it is also the organizer of the annual book festival that takes place every year in downtown Baton Rouge. We also include the Chapalayan National Heritage Area. If you're unfamiliar, it stretches 14 parishes, and it is really ecologically varied. It's a very unique landscape and provides a huge impact to our tourism operations, because it is something that, we're the largest freshwater swamp in the U.S., and that's a huge attraction for a lot of different visitors. So very glad to have them as part of us. We also include Louisiana Seafood Promotion and Marketing Board that promotes the use and purchase of Louisiana seafood. We are the second top producer of seafood in the US, right behind Alaska. And so this is a very important piece of DCRT, and we work with them quite frequently on a variety of events to put Louisiana seafood at the forefront of people's minds. We also include Louisiana State Museum. That includes 9 state museums across the state of Louisiana, from like the Jazz Museum to the Sports Hall of Fame in Natchitoches. And it is a huge piece of the puzzle of what tourism promotes as well. And then we have the Office of Cultural Development. That contains a lot of other offices. It includes archaeology, arts, historic preservation, codafil. It is the keeper of the culture of Louisiana, which is also a huge part, obviously, of who we are and how we're known to the world. So OCD is very, very varied. You'll hear more about that later, and hopefully in more detail than I can provide. We also include Louisiana State Parks. We have 38 state parks, historic sites, and preservation areas. They offer visitors hiking, biking, horseback riding, paddling, all kind of outdoor opportunities, camping, obviously, and are a huge part of the Office of DCRT. And then, of course, there is tourism. That is where I am from. Our mission is, of course, to attract visitors to the state. A visitor is technically anyone who has traveled more than 50 miles to get to their destination. So that does include travel within the state, from in the form of staycations, to attracting visitors from all over the world. And our goal, of course, especially set forth by Lieutenant Governor Nungesser, is to attract visitors to every one of the parishes all across the state, not just any small metro or any major metro rather that that would typically attract a visitor. So that's our goal going forward. And with that, I'm going to bring up Lynn for our Louisiana travel data.
Good morning, everyone. As you can see, the pandemic greatly impacted the tourism industry. We lost 21.5 million visitors in 2020, 6.3 billion in visitor spending, 616 million in state and local taxes over 2019. And that is all to say that we did lose a lot of jobs by the end of 2020, but this year we are up 7% in jobs, but still 12% over 2019. Tourism in contact is one of those set of data that are tangible data. So you can see here in the slides that, they are not just numbers thrown out there. They have a little bit of context to them, and they're across the board for comparisons. Next is our visitors and our travel trends. This information is very important because it helps us decide on our marketing, on our advertising, on our promotions, and any decisions that we make based on our travelers and getting those travelers into the state. This is one of our newest graphs and data sets that we have. We don't get a lot of information on attractions, so this is really helping us understand that our visitors are moving throughout the state, and really you can tell as 21 over 20, we are up, and that just shows some positive increases, and we know that we're getting those visitors and they are moving throughout the state. Next is our competitive grant program. This program is for fairs, festivals, tourism events, for advertising reimbursements up to $10,000. It's based on a fiscal year, so July 1 to June 30th within that year. This program has several eligible events, as you can see, fairs and festivals, tourism events, competitions that are very specific, and a new tourism attraction opening. So we have eligible and ineligible marketing expenses. Basically, most things are eligible. As you can see, billboards are our only thing that we request that are out of state. And then ineligible would be your flyers or a poster or posting just on our website. So to complete a successful application, read all the guidelines, please. Make sure that you are submitting all the documentation that we require. And then the summary of event, it's who, what, when, where, why. It's pretty basic. And the tourism media plan, you're gonna, all that media that you have in there is estimates on what you want to do, but it is a basis on your grant award. So with that being said, if you do make any changes, once we get your grant agreement, you would just email me and we would figure out if that is the best route for you to take. However, your grant award amount that you receive will not change, even if your media does change. And then to submit the final report packet, we have it all listed in there, what's submitted, but it's an invoice, all your deliverables, invoices, and the summary of events. And then again, this year we're asking 90 days before the tourism event. So you have until the end of June. That's when the fiscal year ends. So any events coming up, I need those applications in and we'll review them. You'll get a grant letter, award letter in. I'll do your grant agreement. All creatives approved by me prior to you sending, placing that ad. And then you'll do your final report packet and be paid after the event is completed and the final report packet is submitted to me. And all applications can be found on the industry portal that Margot or Jennifer will be talking about momentarily. Any questions? All right, thank y'all so much. Oh, wait, we have one. Okay. We have, yeah.
Whatever is advertised digitally has to be able to have.
Right. Right. So to that question, no, because you would not be able to have logo placement on that ad.
However, typically annually we offer an SEM co-op that we've done in the past for the different departments.
Okay, can I hear you say that?
I don't know.
Okay. Can you say that?
Repeat it.
Oh, what is it? Okay. Jennifer will tell you about an SEM program that we have. Okay, thank y'all.
Good morning. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Louisiana Attraction Support Grant. This is a new grant that we're offering. It's going to run from through July 30th of 2023. Applications are due May 17th. That deadline has been extended. It was originally March 1st. So please make note of that deadline. I know that will be helpful to a lot of people. The purposes of the grant are to provide targeted assistance for existing Louisiana-based tourism attractions to enhance the visitor experience or promote and attract visitors to the tourism attractions. And this is, the funding was made available through the American Rescue Plan Act. And then we were dedicated funds from the division and the governor to spend these dollars. And one of the ways that we're doing this is through this Louisiana Attraction Support Grant. Again, the deadline is May 17th, and applicants that meet eligibility criteria can apply for up to $20,000. And we have allocated $4,000 of that 20 to just placing our logo on your website. That was a way for us to be able to give you money without you having to expend any cost up front. So $4,000 of that will be paid in 2 different payments. If you are only applying for logo placement, if you don't have the funds to do any kind of advertising or marketing and are only going to seek funds for the logo placement, we will pay you $2,000 upon execution of the grant agreement, and then $2,000 at the conclusion of the grant, which would be June of 2023. But if logo placement is just one of the things that you're applying for, it will be $2,500 upon execution of the grant agreement and $1,500 at the end of the grant program. The applications are reviewed as they are received, and award notifications are sent as the applicants are approved for funding. So we're trying to get these out very, very quickly. If you send it in, it's usually about a 2-week turnaround or so for me to get that info back to you so you can start your marketing. The grant term will begin on the day that you receive your letter, and it will end on June 30th of 2023. So all the expenses need to be expended during the term of the grant agreement. Who can apply? An eligible applicant is a private entity, and that's private or nonprofit, that owns or operates a Louisiana tourist attraction that meets all of the criteria listed in the guidelines. First of which is you need to fall within one of these criteria of classification categories of museum, historic home, botanical or sculpture garden, any of the things that you think of when you think of tourist attraction. Those are all listed there. If you have one that's not listed that you want to make a case for, you can include that on your application, and we will determine whether or not it meets the eligibility criteria. You also have to have an approved live business listing on louisianatravel.com, and either Jennifer or Margot will talk to you about how to use the data engine to list your business there if it's not already up. You have to have an official website, not just a social media page. You have to have been open to the public a minimum of 2 years. This is one question that we had at a couple of our seminars. If you are an attraction that had to close due to COVID, but you had been open for 2 years prior to closing, and you are open the day you apply, you can still apply. We will allow that previous 2-year public opening to apply for this. You have to allow visitors under 18, and you have to be open to the public a minimum of 4 days a week, 9 months a year. You can't just be open for special events. Eligible applicants, all this is in the guidelines that are available on the portal. You have to be a registered vendor in LaGov. You can do that at louisiana.gov, and the help desk can walk you through that process if you have any questions. You have to be current in the filing of all your applicable taxes and reports. You cannot be suspended or debarred by any government entity. You must be in good standing with the Louisiana Secretary of State's office, and you have to otherwise be able to apply for and enter into a grant agreement with the state of Louisiana. Entities and attractions that are not eligible include CVBs, public entities, bars, restaurants, retail establishments, spas or salons, golf courses, accommodations, trails, byways, festivals, events, artists, farmers markets, and makers markets, events and performance venues, camps, training facilities, and any attraction that is owned or operated by a public entity. And that is the reason that these have to be private is we were concerned about double dipping with these American Rescue Plan funds, because a lot of the cities and municipalities all got that money as well, and we didn't want there to be any issues with entities getting double funds. Again, the eligible expense, there's the logo first of all, and that counts for $4,000 towards the total of 20 that you can apply for. So after you take that 4,000 out, it leaves you 16,000 that can be allocated across media placement, media production, videography or photography services, licensing or artist fees, printing of collateral promotional materials, and that's printed, that does not include promo items, so no pens or cups or anything like that. This is brochures, rack cards, those sorts of materials. Exhibit expenses, that's if you want to, if you are the quilting museum and you want to have a special exhibit on 18th century quilts and need money to procure the artifacts for that, that would be included under here, as would any exhibit signage that would be needed for the exhibit. On-site signage, that's any kind of sign on your property. It has to be on your property. And registration fees to attend travel-related trade or consumer shows. If you want to go to ABA or NTA or any of those things, those would qualify for reimbursement. This is a 100% reimbursement grant, so you have to expend the funds before we can reimburse them. You cannot use any federal or state grant dollars for this grant. We can't reimburse any of the expenses paid with those grant dollars. All right, there's also a list of ineligible expenses. These include, but are not limited to, previously incurred expenses, agency time, retainer fees, hosting fees for websites, operating or administrative costs, building rent, construction or maintenance, ongoing market research initiatives, items for resale or promotional items, entertainment, trophies or prize money, or grant writing or grant management costs. When you're filling out your application, be sure that when you do your goals, objectives, and measurements, make sure these things line up. If your program goal is to increase visitation at your attraction, then the way that you would measure that would be something like how many tickets you sold to your attraction. Sometimes people think this is a lot harder than it is. It's a pretty straightforward thing. What do you want this money for? Most of you probably want it to get more people in the door at your attraction. So don't say my program goal is to increase visitation at XYZ attraction, and then say the way you're going to tell me that is through your web traffic. That doesn't correlate to that goal. So just make sure that all that runs together. All right, we went over the logo placement. Again, that's going to be an initial payment of $2,500 upon execution of the grant agreement, and the $1,500 at the end of the grant agreement, unless logo placement is the only thing that you're doing, and that would be 2 payments of $2,000. For other expenses, all of that you need to you have to incur the expense before you can submit it for reimbursement. And you submit an invoice to me along with the invoice from the media vendor or whoever the vendor is, plus proof of performance. And the grant application and guidelines outline everything that you need for proof of performance. You know, for media, it's your standard proof of performance, which would be tear sheets for print, screenshots of digital ads. For printing, it's copies of whatever you printed, etc. Again, May 17th is the deadline. Reimbursement grant. You have to follow the logo and tagline requirements that are outlined in the guidelines. That is for media placement and also for printed pieces. So if you want to print a new brochure, you'll have to include our logo in that. And any of the media that you place needs to include our logo. You need to send everything to me for approval prior to placement or purchase. And that's to protect the grantee so that we make sure that you have used our logo properly. It's the correct size. And we don't want anyone to incur an expense and then not be able to be reimbursed for it. So please make sure that you submit all of that creative to me prior to placement or purchase. And yes, reviewed as they are received and they're awarded as they come in. So I've been getting those out the door. We originally allocated $1 million for this grant program, but when we extended the deadline to May 17th, we also decided that as long as there are funds available, even if we exceed that $1 million, we're going to keep funding it until we run out of money. Obviously, you know, there's not an unlimited pool of money here, but if we need to exceed the $1 million in order to give grants to everyone who applies and who is eligible, then we are willing to do that. So get those applications in. And if you have any questions, please feel free to call me, or if you want me to review anything before you submit your application, I'm happy to do it. One thing that's similar to Lynn's program is when you submit this and you've got your scope of work outlined on your application, you're going to do all print media, or you're only going to do printed brochures or anything like that. Once your grant is approved, if you decide to change course on that and you want to do something different than what was originally approved in your scope of work, that is okay. You just have to tell me, you have to send it to me in an email saying, this is what I'm switching up on my scope of work, this is the cost. And as long as it's an eligible expense, that's fine. Any changes though cannot impact they can't increase the amount of your award. So if you were given $16,000 and that's your grant amount, then if you change things up, I can't, give you 18 based on that change. You do have to stay within that original grant award amount. So please contact me. If anyone has any questions right now, I'm happy to answer them. Sure.
We are open 3 days a week for 11 months out of the year. Are we ineligible even for the logo placement portion?
Unfortunately, per the guidelines, you have to be open 4 days. No matter if it's just logo placement, if you want any part of this grant, you have to meet the guidelines of open 4 days a week, 9 months a year, unfortunately. Now, if those are posted hours, are you ever open by appointment on a fourth day, or strictly 3 days a week?
While she's typing, the next we can open by appointment.
I would need to see that you are open. I would need to see on your website that you're available to visitors 4 days a week, at least 9 months a year. So if that means we're open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday from 11 to 6, and then on Thursday by appointment, I can accept that. It has to be 4 days a week, though, 9 months a year.
And the next one is, it says I can't find the actual application for LMS. It's on the portal one.
Yes, the application is on the portal. Jenna's going to go through how to access that. And if you ever have any trouble with that, you can always email me as well, and I can shoot you a copy. Is that it? All right, thank you.
Actually, you can click on Q&A. I think you have one there. Oh, when we post this that we're downloading.
Yeah, you're sending it.
Yes. Can you enter that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it's Win. Hi, Win. Yes, we are going to actually send out the deck, and we're recording this. We're going to have it available via the portal as well. Okay. All right. Hello, I'm back. Again, I'm Jennifer Berthelot, Director of Communications for the Office of Tourism. I am going to talk to you about the travel industry portal and a couple of other aspects of the LouisianaTravel.com website. Oh. All right. So one of the things that we did at the beginning of COVID, when we all kind of went home, we realized that all of our resources for partners were kind of scattered. Some of them were on the DCRT website, some of them were on LouisianaTravel.com that you see here, and it was just hard to find and navigate all of the different things we had to offer. Plus, we were going to start offering a lot more things. So we took the opportunity to create a one-stop shop for everyone for all resources for our partners. And that is the industry portal. You can access it by going to louisianatravel.com/industry, and then you will have to log in. We are not really keeping anybody out of the portal. It's really open to CBBs, attractions, restaurants, pretty much anybody that's part of the tourism industry is fine to get in, but we are trying to monitor kind of what our usage is to just make sure that this is something that is useful to all of our partners, that's being taken advantage of, so we can know how much outreach we need to do to let people know it exists. People are using it plenty, then great. If we're not seeing a lot of usage, then we might have a problem and we want to let everybody know about it again. So we are going to ask you to create an account and log in. So if you have not yet made an account, you'll just click create an account, and it's going to take you to this user registration where you'll find a little bit of info about where you need to provide some info about yourself. It's not a whole lot. It's just enough to let us know who you are, so we have some idea of who is using the portal. We're approving all partners. Again, we're not turning anybody away that's not like clearly a hacker or some kind of weird situation. If you are involved in the hospitality industry or Louisiana in some way, you're fine, you'll get in. It might take just a second while we review and approve everybody, but you're not going to get shut out. So just provide us all of the info here. It's not a whole lot, just enough to let us know who you are. Once you have your profile created, if you ever forget your password, which I do constantly, when you go to log in, there's a forgot password button. Just click that and it will take you to, it will send you an email to reset your password. This is actually an email that it sent me because I forgot my password. So don't worry about doing this. They'll send you a link, you'll reset it, and then boom, you're back in. No big deal. What do we have in this portal? Everything you could ever want. We have a lot of webinars that we recorded during the pandemic. Everybody was doing webinars. Why not us? So we did a variety of these about a whole plethora of topics, from photography tips to this was how to create a successful Google profile, grant writing, research. We did some sports tourism webinars. They're all there for you to watch. They're recorded just like this will be. We're going to add this to those webinars so that people can access all of the details about DCRT and our grants. They are totally free. Again, anybody can watch them. A lot of them are really great for attractions. So if you're a CBB, be sure to share these with people in your community so that they can watch them. Just as in, if there's any topics we didn't cover, feel free to let us know. We're not done with these forever. We can always cover more things. We also provide the Google Recovery Toolkit through the portal. This was something that we purchased in with Miles and Google to provide another resource about digital marketing for our partners. So this offers the Digital Marketing Academy that has a variety of topics that they have articles and tips on, from social media to search engine optimization, content development, really everything you could need to know about digital marketing. It also includes information about managing your Google My Business account, which was something that we worked on prior to the pandemic. making sure that all the different attractions across the state had an up-to-date and accurate Google My Business account, so that when visitors would Google a location or a topic in the area that they were in and find information on a business, that business was as accurate as possible. Especially during the pandemic, this is very important. You cannot imagine what it does to visitor confidence when they go to a destination that Google says is open and it is not. So managing those accounts, there's details about how to do that best here. There is how to use different, I mean, every type of different social platform, including TripAdvisor for attractions. So I definitely would check this out. It is also free. It's easy to log in. You just access it from the portal. And I think the password's Louisiana. It'll give it to you when you log in through your Google account, and you have immediate access to all of that content. These are just some examples. Like I said, content marketing, TripAdvisor, Google Analytics, if you're not tracking usage on your website, definitely a useful article to cover as far as knowing what your visitors to your site are looking at, knowing what kind of content they're interested in, so you can optimize it. Despite the pandemic, or maybe because of it, I know Office of Tourism has seen a huge uptick in visitation to our website. It's been performing very, very well. I think that's a lot of pent up desire to travel. People are trying to plan ahead, and having some insight into how they're doing that would be fantastic. So again, definitely check out the Google Recovery Toolkit. There's a lot of useful information there. The next thing, Lindsay covered this a little bit about making sure that you have a business listing on LouisianaTravel.com. Now, to do that, you're going to go to the very bottom of the page. In our footer, we have industry links, and you will see submit an event and submit a business listing. And that is how you submit your attraction, your restaurant, your hotel, whatever you have. Or if you have a festival that you run or a different event that you are putting on, that's also where you would do that. So you'll click on the appropriate one of these, and it will take you to a login page. Again, if you do not have a login for this yet, it's really easy. You just register for an account. You're going to click the little register button. It's going to take you to a page to fill in all of your information. And from there, you will get approved, and you can submit your event or your business listing, as depending on which one you're in. We do have within the data engine some pointer sheets and how-tos on what kind of tips we have for creating your business listing and making those things evergreen. I highly advise reading through those and using them. They include what types of businesses and events we will accept into the data engine. We don't accept all of them. What's important to remember about businesses and event listings is that they have to be something that will attract a visitor. They can be, and that can be a lot of things, but it's not. For example, we had a really huge influx of like wedding shops at one point. And while destination weddings are a thing, normally you don't buy your wedding dress once you get to your destination. So we pulled a lot of those things out. They need to be something that really will attract a visitor to your destination. But they also include tips on how to make sure that your listing is really well written and can be something that you can manage easily. When we started cleaning out the data engine at one point, we had hotels talking about how they were newly renovated in 1996 and your room had a VCR, don't worry. And we had to edit those. So there are some great pointers about how to make sure that doesn't happen to your attraction so that it feels really dated. So check out all of that information. And if you have any questions as you're making your listing, you can always contact myself or Margot and my team. We can help you out and make sure that you're where you need to be to get your listing up. So next, events. Specific to events, we are really trying to promote our fairs and festivals especially as we're getting back into festival season now and they're happening. This is very important to the Lieutenant Governor, and it's very important to us. We know that the pandemic hit in 2020 at a really unfortunate time for our festival economy. It was middle of March, and that was right when we were kind of getting kicked off. So we want to make sure that festivals come back strong. So there is a process that we have set up to make sure that we are promoting your events as well as we possibly can. So you will submit your event through the LouisianaTravel.com data engine that we were just talking about. Once you do that, your listing will show up on our events calendar on our main website. That's great. We have a lot, like I said, we've had a huge amount of visitation. So you definitely want to get it there. But next most important thing you want to do is have a Facebook event. Not necessarily a Facebook profile. These are kind of two different things. If you have a Facebook profile, then you need to have an event page. From the event page, you can add us as a co-host. So you'll go in and you'll invite Louisiana Travel to be a co-host. You'll recognize our profile from our logo. And once you add us as a co-host, your event will populate on our Facebook calendar. So that's huge in and of itself. We have over 400,000 followers. You're going to have immediately everybody that's a follower of us will see that event on our calendar. And they'll see if their friends are interested in it. They'll see that somebody they know might be going, and you start to generate a lot more of a following. And then also, if we're a co-host, we can put money behind your event and create a boosted post about your event. We cannot do that if we are not a co-host. So it's very important that you add us as a co-host so we can put some more money behind it and get you even more audience beyond what you would get organically through social media. This is all our contact information if you have any questions about anything at all. For our attendee who could not find the LASG application, it is on the portal when you sign into the industry portal at louisianatravel.com/industry. There is a whole section of grants where you can find information on CGP, CMP, lots of acronyms, LA and LASG, and all of those pages link to the full application. So you're going to want to go there to access your application for that grant. And do we have any questions?
No questions, but when says the Facebook events post.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. The Facebook events posts are great. I'll elaborate a little bit on that too. As I mentioned, some of the events in the data engine are meant to attract visitors. So they are specifically something that we need to think will bring in somebody from over 50 miles away to attend. So there are a lot of smaller community events that we don't typically allow into the data engine because every community in Louisiana has one. So what we'll end up finding is that every farmer's market or community theater or what have you will be all that is in there. And if a visitor to our website goes to the events calendar, they will see nothing but all of that. So we try to keep that very well curated, but we do have a more lax policy on our Facebook page because what we're able to do with Facebook is geo-target people who are already in the area. And so if somebody's already traveling in Louisiana and there's a smaller community event going on, but if you're visiting the area, you might want to go see it, we can promote it and get it to those people. And it operates more like a short-term planning tool. So don't feel if you can't get into the data engine because your event is too community-based, still ask about Facebook because we could still be able to do something for you there. But just to kind of delineate those and make sure that everybody's aware of that structure to our events. Good? Anything else?
Oh, one more question. Do we have a deadline for the CMP application?
CMP deadline?
CMP?
Yeah.
We didn't even get into CMP, but that's going to be probably end of May. It'll likely be posted by the end of March, the application.
Okay, so in case y'all could not hear Lindsay, the deadline will likely be in May and the application will likely go up in March for CMP. All right. Terrific.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mitchell Elshire. I'm with the Office of State Parks in the Division of Outdoor Recreation. I'll switch gears a little bit to get away from events and advertising and talk to you about outdoor recreation grant opportunities. I'm going to talk to you about three: the Recreational Trails Grant Program, the Outdoor Recreation Legacy Partnership Program, and the Land and Water Conservation Fund program. Before I get into those programs, though, I'm going to divert just slightly on the SCORP, which is the statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. We just completed an update, and the importance of that plan or that document, which is available on that website that you see up there. It's not in that picture, but across the top, there's a selection bar and you'll see Louisiana plans, and the SCORP is in that, the newly updated 2020 SCORP. The importance of that plan is it's a guide for planning across the state for outdoor recreation. It also, through a process of questionnaires, establishes the priorities for outdoor recreation development in Louisiana. In Louisiana. And that in turn leads into our scoring criteria for these 3 grant programs. So the first grant program I'd like to talk to you about is the Recreational Trails program. It is a 80-20 match, which means you'll be reimbursed 80% of your expenditure for eligible items. It's a program that's run through or funded by the Federal Highway, and it runs through our Louisiana DOTD, and we administer it here in state parks. The eligible applicants are government entities, nonprofits, and in certain circumstances, commercial entities. Application deadline is first day of July each year, and the applications for all these programs, they are actually built environments or built projects. So there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of environmental that needs to be done and everything else. So they take a while to fill out the application, as well as scoring and getting the award out. So for that reason, around March 1st, it's kind of the last day for you to start working on a recreational trails grant to be able to complete the application for July. The type of projects that are eligible or funded through the recreational trails grants are motorized trails, non-motorized trails, combination motorized and non-motorized, and some of the support facilities for trails like trailside and trailhead improvements, restrooms, parking, that sort of stuff. And the program does allow for easement and right-of-way acquisition. The next program, going out of order from our website slightly, is the Land and Water Conservation Fund. This is a 50-50 match program. The only eligible applicants in this program are government entities, school boards, parish, city, town, village applicants. Our standard deadline for the Land and Water Conservation Fund applications is April 1 of each year. And again, takes a while to get all the documents. There's about 30 or so different documents that need to go in to the application. For you to complete that, December is really about the last day we can start talking to you to be able to get your application completed by the April 1. I will say that we are looking into maybe loosening those deadlines and working with the applicants through the application development a little more than we have in the past. So we will accept applications all year long, and as soon as your application is ready, we'll accept it. But for now, we're sticking with the April 1 deadline. Types of projects for land and water is any outdoor recreation. So it can be ball fields, paddling, playgrounds, passive recreation, trails included. The key is it has to be public outdoor recreation. It has to be open to the public, and it has to be outdoor recreation. So something like a gymnasium or a community center is not eligible for funding in the program. Now, the Outdoor Legacy program is also a 50-50 match. Basically, it's part of the Land and Water Conservation Fund program. So everything that applied to land and water conservation applies also to the ORLAP, or Outdoor Recreation Legacy program. Few caveats to this one is The applicant has to represent a jurisdiction of 50,000 people or more. Be situated contiguous to a geographic boundary of an urbanized area delineated by the Census Bureau. And the project applicant has to serve an eligible jurisdiction of 50,000, which is kind of the first statement. But these applications also compete nationally, which is different than the other two programs that are competing within the state and scored on the state priorities. I heard one of the other presenters give kind of a timeline, so I wanted to throw that out there. The recreational trails grants from the July 1 application to award can be anywhere from 8 months to about 12 months. The discrepancy in or the length of that open window for awards has a lot to do with the environmental clearance that starts after you get acknowledged that you're eligible. Land and water historically is a 4 to 6 month from application to award. In 2020 and 2021, that was thrown out the window. We just awarded the 2020 grants last December, and we're just now awarding the 2021 grants this March. So we're hoping to get back on track to more of the 4 to 6 month window, but we won't know until we go through another cycle. And historically, the ORLAP was a 12 to 24 month because it was nationally competitive. I did see where they are trying to streamline that and get it to 12 months or under, but we've not done any grant process through that to prove that to be the case. Do we have any questions? Oh, yeah, I forgot the important thing. The best thing to do for any of these programs is just contact us first. And the contact people are myself at the Division of Outdoor Recreation and State Parks, Michael Domain for recreational trails, or Suzette Sims for land and water. Land and water also on the website has an initial interest form. You can fill that out and email it to Suzette, and we'll reach back out to you and talk to you about how eligible your project is and maybe how you can improve your scoreability. Any questions? I'm being told no questions. So again, thank y'all very much.
Good morning. I am Amanda Lanata. I'm the Assistant Director for Louisiana Main Street. And I'm glad to be with you today. I'm relatively new to this role. I started December 1st, but I'm not new to Main Street. I've been a believer in the Main Street approach for many years because I saw that the model works. So what is Main Street? The simple answer is we help people save their towns. Across our state, communities large and small are facing many problems. Young people are leaving for lack of jobs and opportunity. There's vacant buildings, sprawl. Municipalities can't keep up with maintenance and infrastructure. Our towns are struggling and some are dying. This is where Main Street comes in. We use a national model pioneered in the 1970s to save historic downtown commercial districts. Since then, thousands of communities across America have used the Main Street approach to revitalize their towns. Louisiana joined in 1984, and now I'll show you some of the transformations in our communities. 25 years ago, New Iberia's downtown read as closed for business. The catalyst for revitalization came from an unlikely source, a city ordinance spearheaded by the local Main Street organization. It allowed for balconies to be added back to historic buildings that previously had them. After one balcony went up, everyone wanted one. They've seen over $30 million in private investment downtown, and currently they have about $20 million in grant-funded improvements happening, including 2 marinas being built on Bayou Teche. And the city saw more sales tax revenue during COVID than before. 30 years ago, downtown Natchitoches had a vacancy rate of 60%. Now it's 1%. Downtown is filled with shops, restaurants, and apartments. Thousands of visitors flock to annual events like the Christmas Festival. In 2010, a local financial advisor rehabilitated this former department store in downtown Slidell that had been vacant for 20 years. This one project catalyzed numerous others downtown. The mayor said, we had literally lost Old Town and now we got it back. The Main Street model of economic development isn't about that one big project. Instead, it's incremental, building momentum over time. It's holistic. We use a 4-point approach where we look at design or the appearance of downtown. We look at economic vitality and business development, and we promote downtown. And we build partnerships across the community. And in Louisiana, we've produced real results over the last 38 years, almost $1 billion invested, 14,800 new jobs, over 3,500 new businesses, and 1 million volunteer hours. And we've only tracked the volunteer hours for the last 10 or 15 years, so we think that number is probably much higher. Our economic impact studies show that Main Street communities in Louisiana are more resilient during economic downturns than non-Main Street communities in Louisiana, and compared against national averages. Joining Main Street connects you with a national and statewide network. Local communities employ a director, not an out-of-towner, it's someone who lives there. The approach is not one size fits all. We help our communities identify what makes them unique because we want to differentiate them, not to be the same as everybody else. Our office trains and equips the local directors, and we also have several grants that are available to property owners within Louisiana Main Street districts. The redevelopment incentive grant awards from $2,500 to $10,000 for bricks and mortar projects, and that requires a 50-50 match. The Paul Brunn HRSP grant awards $55,000 to return vacant or underutilized buildings back into use. And that grant, we believe it's going to be a $10,000 match for this next round. And then our certified local government communities are also eligible for grants for planning and education and outreach. These amounts vary depending on what we have. And that one is also a 50-50 match. Our next grant rounds will be opening in the spring, so please contact me if you have any questions. Downtowns are the heartbeat of our communities. They are the flagship, the front door. If they aren't vibrant, then our cities can't thrive. Developers see a shabby downtown and move on. Stagnation and decline set in. We need to put our best foot forward, and if we do this hard work, we can make our towns a better place for ourselves, our children, and our grandchildren. They can be dynamic, vibrant places filled with people and businesses. They can nurture entrepreneurs and small business. Local governments can see increased tax revenue. We can have pride in the places we live. And from a tourism standpoint, Lynn's data shows that the most popular activities for our visitors are culinary and dining experiences, shopping, and visiting historic sites. Visitors can do all of that on Main Street. I've heard many times since I started this job that people can tell which community is a Main Street and which one isn't. Main Streets have that historic charm, the character, and the authentic experiences that people want. Having a strong Main Street organization will not only help residents, but also with your visitor engagement. If all of this resonates with you today, I challenge you to get involved with Main Street, with the movement. If you live in a Main Street community, please reach out to your director and find a project that you're passionate about. And if you don't live in a Main Street community, please contact myself or Ray Scriber, our director. We'd be happy to visit with you about that process. We were just with a community earlier this week. They're very excited about exploring becoming a Main Street. So that's all I had. If we had any questions. Okay, I thank you for your time.
Morning, I'm Justin Lemoyne. I'm actually not Francesca Vega, but I am presenting on the Louisiana Cultural Districts on Francesca's behalf today. So the cultural districts is a program that was created under the Office of Cultural Development, and the intent is to incentivize economic development through cultural resources in communities that are identified as part of the program. The Cultural Economy Initiative involves cultivating the people, enhancing capacity for production of cultural resources and cultural products, and developing new markets for the creation. Cultural Districts program, the purpose again is to create a community that is vibrant through a hub of cultural activities. So the criteria include geographically contiguous areas distinguished by cultural resources that play a vital role in everyday life. It's a focus on a cultural anchor. Oftentimes, cultural districts have one signature location or project that is the center of that community, and they engage in promotion and preservation of cultural aspects very specific to their location. There are two program incentives that go along with the cultural districts, one being historic preservation and the other being visual arts. As you can see here in this example like this, the historic preservation is layered on top of a lot of other incentives that already exist in the state of Louisiana. Whenever you have a historic or a cultural district, that includes historic tax credits for building rehab. And it also includes incentives for public art. It also includes a sales tax abatement for local sales taxes for one-of-a-kind art of qualifying products within those special districts. There used to be a state tax credit as well for the sales tax. That went away in a budget session about 4 years ago, and we're hoping that one day we can bring that back. Here you can see some of the elements. This is New Iberia of success in a cultural district layered with the Main Streets program to increase the number of anchor institutions. This is the museum there next to the Bayou Teche Museum. It increases the number of opportunities for new jobs, for new partnerships between different levels of different elements related to the culture of the region. And you can utilize these historic preservation tax credits to incentivize redevelopment in these historic cores. An annual report before the world of COVID, $3.4 billion in revenue was reported in cultural districts. 2 million people attended events in cultural districts in the state of Louisiana, and a net growth you can see of 232 businesses. Over 2,000 cultural events were held within cultural districts within the area. And so these cultural districts, along with Main Street programs, help to incentivize strengthening the fabric of our communities. The Cultural Districts program is a very valuable tool for economic growth, but also for community vitality and creative placemaking. The community vitality is really important because the people who are running and administering these cultural districts are communicating with other communities to learn what other communities have done well that has made their places stronger. And so it's an increased network of connectivity to show how to make our communities better and more vibrant. And having that connection back to the Office of Cultural Development is a really important part of that. Francesca Vega is the Cultural Districts Program Coordinator, and while she is out doing the work of a Cultural District Coordinator today, you can see here her contact information on the website. We have, I think, 140 cultural districts in the state of Louisiana. Applications are available. So if you go to if you Google Louisiana Cultural District Program, it'll take you to that specific website on CRT, and you can see a little bit more information about how and if you qualify to become a cultural district. Oh, okay. somewhere there. I got confused with the slides. The Louisiana Division of the Arts, which is also under the Office of Cultural Development, has a couple of other grant programs that are available as well. The two that you see here on the screen, the Louisiana Project Grants and the General Operating Support Grants are available. We'll go over a couple things about each of those. The General Operating Support Grants are intended to provide support for organizations that are doing work in the arts community. The organizations applying for support must have creation, presentation, or preservation of one or more of the recognized forms of art in their mission statement. So it's really important. That part right there is extremely important, because if your organization is not an organization that is specifically focused on one of these different elements of arts, you automatically do not qualify. The funds support operating expenses, including facility rental, utilities, contracted and professional services for artists and event producers. And it's intended to strengthen the infrastructure of the arts community and the arts industry in Louisiana. And so again, just to simplify that, it's essentially, it exists to promote and preserve and expand the creative economy here in the state of Louisiana. Cultivating a network of arts organizations of every scale and size throughout the state is important, because all of those organizations, entities are ultimately connected back to this division of arts within the state of Louisiana. And that strong network is what provides for preservation of cultural resources, especially in tough times like 2016 and 2020. There are a number of different levels for these. Throughout the history of the program, there was always a match required at all levels. You'll see that at the higher level of institution, greater than $1 million, it's a 1-to-3 match with a maximum award of $15,000. Down at the bottom, the development category is something that's new this year that the Division of Arts is trying out, and it's for organizations with a budget below $30,000. There is actually no match requirement, and the maximum award is $5,000 for those. For the Louisiana Project Grants, which was formerly the decentralized art funding, there's a little bit more information available about those. It must be an art project involving dance, design, folk life, literature, and media. An emphasis on innovation and artistry is very important when grants are being considered by the review committee. Risk-taking and trying something new is very, very important. Projects that have a trajectory to continue to enhance the region beyond the period of funding are especially heavily considered as part of the review process for this. You must be a nonprofit tax exempt organization. Local, parish, or state governments are eligible and are not required to submit proof of nonprofit status, of course. Public or private schools and school boards are eligible. Organizations or entities who lack the legal status to be an applicant may apply using eligible nonprofit organization as a fiscal agent. And I think, oftentimes in small communities, when there are organizations that are not quite developed yet, they can partner, even if it's an artist or if it's an arts group that's not qualified through the state yet, they can partner with an established organization like a local museum, like a local nonprofit that has a track record and is registered with the state of Louisiana. You can see here we have minimum and maximum amounts based upon the different regions of the Louisiana State Art Council. It's larger in some of our larger markets like Shreveport and Lafayette, which is the Acadiana Center for the Arts, and then Baton Rouge and New Orleans. Susanna Johansson is the director of the Division of the Arts for the state of Louisiana, and then Erica Anderson and J.L. Gordon are our two grants directors and program analysts, and they have a whole lot more detail and information about those. I'll say that if you Google the two different grant types that are available, it'll take you right to those pages. The program grants have a grant cycle coming up here in the summer, and I believe that the general operating support grants cycle just closed here at the end of January. Okay, Caroline, take over.
Questions? Hi, I'm Caroline Byrne. I'm the Assistant Director for Atchafalaya National Heritage Area. You guys heard from Justin. He decided to tag me in since I handle the grants for us as well as the communications. So just to give you all a quick overview of the National Heritage Areas program, National Heritage Area is a region that is designated by Congress as having culturally, historic, or natural resources of significance to the entire story of the nation. So we are one of 2 in Louisiana. Cane River in Natchitoches is the other one, but as you can see up here, they run the gamut. Mississippi Delta is based on blues, silos and smokestacks is Industrial Revolution. So anywhere that works to promote and preserve those resources to continue telling that story can be designated by Congress. We are consistent of 14 parishes. We start up in Concordia and go all the way down to Terrebonne in what makes up the Atchafalaya Basin and floodway. So we're one of the bigger ones, but one of our big cultural identities is the French language component, as well as the Cajun and Creole cultures and how we have lived with and in spite of the water. We are a granting organization. We fund anything from cultural heritage events that can be Books Along the Tesh has received a grant from us in the past, Sugar Fest at the West Baton Rouge Museum, anything that really celebrates the culture of the area, as well as natural resource improvements that can be native planting and plantings, any conservation programs, cleanup days. Heritage interpretation would be tour development, trail development, signage, and also recreation improvements. We funded yak ports, which are kayak launches in Spring Bayou and floating campsites. So those are kind of our main categories. We are a reimbursable grant, and since we are federally funded, we are a partner of the National Park Service. It is a 1-to-1 required match, though, although we do encourage more than 1-to-1 match. So if you are located in one of those parishes, or if you have a project that has to do with the Atchafalaya Basin and floodway, and you want to apply for a grant, this is how you would do it. You would visit us at atchafalaya.org and either go to the top and click apply for grants, or the drop down under about us, grant and resources. It'll bring you to this page. So the top box where it says the application cycle is closed is what you'll currently see. Our big grants open in May, and I believe the most we've funded has been up to $30,000. So that's kind of the cap there. But that'll run from May 1st to May 31st. However, we have small fund grants that are up to about $2,000 to $5,000 that we accept on a rolling basis. It's the same categories, it's the same match requirements. It's just the small fund ones are kind of if printing costs come up, or if you want to help marketing on Facebook or little events and things like that. And the application process is the same. Now, if you are not in the 14 parishes or do not qualify for one of our grants, we also track other funding opportunities, which is the bottom red square. And that's anything from the National Endowment for the Humanities grants, USDA grants. We track the tourism grants there. And they are broken out by category. So you can search if you're a museum, what museum grants are available. If you are looking for historic preservation, community and economic development, those are all there. If you have any questions, or if you are looking to apply, we do encourage you to reach out to me or Justin beforehand. It's just easier to help on the front end, and our contact information is there. And if there are no questions, I'm done. Is this me or is this you? I guess this is me. We're taking over OCD Atchafalaya today. These are just a few other resources that the Office of Cultural Development offers. It is the home of the SHPO. So they do federal and state historic preservation tax credits. We work with folk life and archaeology. We actually sit with archaeology, and they'll do traveling exhibits. Archaeology offers kits for teachers, which are very popular, to kind of bring that into the classroom. Culturalist is a database of artists, mediums, grants. So it's kind of to serve artists to connect them with grants, as well as if people are looking for a visual media artist for a certain project, you can go to Culturalist and it can break out by region. The WE initiative is part of CODIFIL, which is the Council of Development of French in Louisiana, who is also in our office. They list businesses that speak in French. We have found, especially the Canadian market and some of the French market, but mostly Canadians, want to come to the Atchafalaya area, to Louisiana as a whole, and find places that speak French. So you can access that there. We also have other resources for people. We're launching our tapestry videos right now, which are videos created last year that show places of significance throughout the state, as well as tradition bearers. There are artists, there are musicians, there are shrimp dryers, and those are on the Facebook page. We have coloring books for kids. We've got brochures. So you can contact me, Justin, Amanda, any of the OCD people, and we can connect you with the right person for those resources. Okay, thanks, all.
Hi, everyone, me again. So if there are no further questions, I'll check the Q&A real quick. Nope. If there are no further questions coming in through Q&A or chat, I want to thank everyone for coming. We will be sending out the deck to everybody that has registered for this particular meeting and anybody who attended any of our in-person versions. We are also going to be able to post this recording on the travel industry portal, which I already kind of went through. That is again at louisianatravel.com/industry. And we'll put that in the webinars for you to access and watch later at your leisure. And if you want to access any more of the contact information or any refreshers on the data, but I can tell you everybody here is perfectly willing to have you reach out with any questions. We would love to help in any way we can, so just let us know. Any further? Great, you're welcome and thank you for coming.